Hi, this is take 2 on this video. I thought it was Saturday. I don't know why, but this is Thursday and I'm glad. So, chapter 40 in Ezekiel on Thursday afternoon. In the 25th year of our captivity, in the beginning of the year, in the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year after that, the city was smitten in the selfsame day. The hand of the Lord was upon me and brought me thither. So there's some time that's skipped here. He prophesied the last chapter in 587 BC. This chapter he's prophesying it in 574 BC, about 13 years. So that's why it said it was the 14th year after the city was smitten, because he was prophesying during that time before this. And they're in the 25th year of their captivity, and Jeremiah said it was going to be 70 years. He prophesied that it was. So they still had 45 more years to go. And God had his hand on Ezekiel and brought him thither. In the visions of God brought he me into the land of Israel, and set me upon a very high mountain, by which was as the frame of a city on the south. So he was on that high mountain, and he was looking down south toward Jerusalem. And he brought me thither, and behold, there was a man whose appearance was like the appearance of brass, with a line of flax in his hand, and a measuring reed, and he stood in the gate. And the man said unto me, Son of man, behold with thine eyes, and hear with thine ears, and set thine heart upon all that I shall show thee. For to the intent that I might show them unto thee art thou brought hither. Declare all that thou seest to the house of Israel. So God was using Ezekiel mightily as that prophet that went to the house of Israel and told them what they needed to know. And he's our prophet too, because he's telling us what we need to know. So far he's told us many things, hasn't he? And especially about the history of Jerusalem and about the history of the Jews, but also about what's going to come, what's prophesied to come even now. You know, we haven't seen some things that was prophesied in Ezekiel. So he's supposed to tell all that he sees to the house of Israel. Verse 5, And behold, a wall on the outside of the house round about, and in the man's hand a measuring reed of 6 cubits long by the cubit and a half and a handbreadth. So he measured the breadth of the building 1 reed, and the height 1 reed. Now we know we call a cubit 1.5 feet by our measurements. So a measuring reed of 6 cubits would be 9 feet long. And 9 feet long reed, he measured the breadth of the building, it was 9 feet, and the height 9 feet. Then came he unto the gate which looketh toward the east, and went up the stairs thereof, and measured the threshold of the gate, which was 1 reed broad, or 9 feet broad. Now I've read this chapter before, and I've tried to picture this building. It's not easy. So, first of all, it doesn't tell you what this building is until you get to the part later on where it talks about places where they made sacrifices. Then you know it's the temple. So this is what we're looking at, is a building that's the temple. Now, was the temple destroyed? The old temple? Yes. Was Solomon's temple destroyed? Yes. What about this one? Where's it going to be, and when is it going to be? Now, we know that the Jews have the book of Ezekiel. That's part of their scriptures. And we know also that they're planning to rebuild the temple, because we know that the temple is already rebuilt during the tribulation. Let me show you why I know that. In 2 Thessalonians 2 and 4. Let's look there. Second Thessalonians, it says 2 and 4. Let no man deceive you. This is 3. By any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, We call him the Antichrist. Verse 4, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped. So that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. That tells us a lot of things. So that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So during the time of this person coming and being on this earth and trying to get everybody to follow him, to take the mark of the beast. We know all about that, don't we? To take that mark and to follow him, and to him thinking that he can defeat God on this earth. And he's getting people to worship him as God, and he's sitting in the temple of God. There's a temple going to be here. And even there's a place in Daniel that talks about the sacrifices being stopped. So we know that there is going to be another temple built, and it should be soon, before the tribulation. So, but we don't know about what this is and who will try to use all these proportions, because it tells a lot about how it's built in here. You could take it as a blueprint, and I'm sure it's going to be a blueprint, but I read in Zechariah 6, 12 and 13, that Jesus shall build the temple of God. Let's look in Zechariah. It's a surprise, because when Jesus comes for the 1,000-year millennial reign, when he comes for that reign on the earth, then perhaps this temple that we're talking about is going to be built. 6 and 12 says, and speak unto him, saying, thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, behold the man whose name is the branch. And it's a big letters, B-R-A-N-C-H, all capital letters. And he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of the Lord. Even he shall build the temple of the Lord. Said it twice. Every word shall be established, right? And he shall bear the glory, and shall sit and rule upon his throne. And he shall be a priest upon his throne, and the council of peace shall be between them both. So Jesus is both the high priest and the King of kings and the Lord of lords. So he's the priest and the king. And that's who it's talking about. He shall bear the glory, and shall sit and rule upon his throne. And he shall be a priest upon his throne. So he's a king and a priest. And the council of the peace shall be between them both. So this prophecy here, which was repeated, said twice, he shall build the temple of the Lord, that perhaps is talking about this temple that's going to be built. We know that Jesus talks about, it talks about in here about the temple being overturned. We went back to that. We've gone back to that several times about it being overturned. I will overturn, I will overturn, I will overturn it. Verse chapter 21 and 27. And it shall be no more until he come whose right it is, and I will give it him. So there's still an overturn to come, because it still hasn't been built. And then until he come whose right it is, when it's Jesus's right to build that temple, then it won't be overturned anymore. And that's what this seems to be, is that temple. Though they may use these measurements and everything to build the one in the tribulation. I don't know. Okay, so let's go on with this. We were where he told him to tell the house of Israel. And we already said about the reeds. So verse 7 says, and every little chamber was 1 reed long and 1 reed broad. And between the little chambers were 5 cubits. And the threshold of the gate by the porch of the gate within was 1 reed. He measured also the porch of the gate within 1 reed. Then measured he the porch of the gate 8 cubits, and the post thereof 2 cubits. And the porch of the gate was inward. And the little chambers of the gate eastward were 3 on this side and 3 on that side. They three were of one measure, and the post had one measure on this side and on that side. And he measured the breadth of the entry of the gate 10 cubits, and the length of the gate 13 cubits. You can almost see somebody following this along and drawing it out. That's how God gave it to Ezekiel. The space also before the little chambers was 1 cubit on this side, and the space was 1 cubit on that side, and the little chambers were 6 cubits on this side, and 6 cubits on that side. He measured then the gate from the roof of one little chamber to the roof of another. The breadth was 25 cubits, door against door. He made also posts of 80 cubits, even unto the post of the court round about the gate. And from the face of the gate of the entrance unto the face of the porch of the inner gate were 50 cubits. And there were narrow windows to the little chambers, and to their post within the gate round about, and likewise to the arches, and windows were round about inward, and upon each post were palm trees. So palm trees is decorating it, right? Then brought he me into the outward court, and lo, there were chambers, and a pavement made for the court round about. 30 chambers were upon the pavement, and the pavement by the side of the gates, over against the length of the gates, was the lower pavement. Then he measured the breadth from the forefront of the lower gate unto the forefront of the inner court without, 100 cubits eastward and northward. And the gate of the outward court that looked toward the north, he measured the length thereof and the breadth thereof. And the little chambers thereof were 3 on this side and 3 on that side, and the posts thereof and the arches thereof were after the measure of the first gate. The length thereof was 50 cubits, and the breadth 25 cubits. You know, I sew, and I have a pattern, and I take that pattern and I measure it. If I need to change parts of it, I change parts of it and measure it, and I get the pattern to work where it works with if I'm making it for myself, works for me, and then I cut it out. Well, this can be used to make a blueprint for the temple. And their windows and their arches and their palm trees were after the measure of the gate that looketh toward the east, and they went up unto it by 7 steps, and the arches thereof were before them. And the gate of the inner court was over against the gate toward the north and toward the east, and he measured from gate to gate 100 cubits. After that he brought me toward the south, and behold, a gate toward the south, and he measured the posts thereof and the arches thereof according to these measures. And there were windows in it, and in the arches thereof round about, like those windows. The length was 50 cubits, and the breadth 25 cubits. And there were 7 steps to go up to it, and the arches thereof were before them. And it had palm trees, one on this side and another on that side, upon the posts thereof. And there was a gate in the inner court toward the south, and he measured from gate to gate toward the south 100 cubits. And he brought me to the inner court by the south gate, and he measured the south gate according to these measures. And the little chambers thereof, and the posts thereof, and the arches thereof, according to these measures, and there were windows in it, and in the arches thereof round about. It was 50 cubits long, and 25 cubits broad. And the arches round about were 25 cubits long, and 5 cubits broad. And the arches thereof were toward the utter court, and palm trees were upon the posts thereof, and the going up to it had 8 steps. And he brought me into the inner court toward the east, and he measured the gate according to these measures. And the little chambers thereof, and the posts thereof, and the arches thereof were according to these measures. And there were windows therein, and in the arches thereof round about. It was 50 cubits long, and 25 cubits broad. And the arches thereof were toward the outward court, and palm trees were upon the posts thereof, on this side and on that side. And the going up to it had 8 steps. And he brought me to the north gate, and measured it according to these measures. The little chambers thereof, the posts thereof, and the arches thereof, and the windows to it round about. The length was 50 cubits, and the breadth 25 cubits. And the post thereof was toward the utter court, and palm trees were upon the post thereof on this side and on that side, and the going up to it had 8 steps. And the chambers and the entries thereof were by the post of the gates, where they washed the burnt offering. This is the first time that you realize through the text that this is the temple, a new temple. The old temple had been destroyed. Solomon's temple had been destroyed. This is a new temple. When it's going to be built, I'm not sure. But I know that God is giving all the measurements. So there It's where they washed the burnt offering, meaning that's where it was going on in the temple, this sacrifice. And in the porch of the gate were 2 tables on this side and 2 tables on that side to slay thereon the burnt offering and the sin offering and the trespass offering. So, the sin offering. We know Jesus has been our sin offering. Are they going to reinstate these offerings in the temple? Now, I know they will in the time of the tribulation because they still don't believe on Jesus. So this might be a clue to when this temple's going to be built. But I don't know. At the side without, as one goeth up to the entry of the north gate, were 2 tables. And on the other side, which was at the porch of the gate, were 2 tables. 4 tables were on this side and 4 tables on that side. By the side of the gate, 8 tables, whereupon they slew their sacrifices. And the 4 tables were of hewn stone, for the burnt offering of 1.5 cubits long, and 1.5 cubits broad, and 1 cubit high, whereupon also they laid the instruments wherewith they slew the burnt offering and the sacrifice. And within were hooks and hand broad, fastened round about, and upon the tables was the flesh of the offering. So this was animal sacrifice in this temple. And without the inner gate were the chambers of the singers in the inner court, which was at the side of the north gate. So there's going to be singers in there. Yes, that's good, isn't it? And their prospect was toward the south, one at the side of the east gate having the prospect toward the north. And he said unto me, This chamber, whose prospect is toward the south, is for the priests, the keepers of the charge of the house. And that chamber whose prospect is toward the north is for the priests, the keepers of the charge of the altar. These are the sons of Zadok among the sons of Levi, which come near to the Lord to minister unto him. So he measured the court 100 cubits long, and 100 cubits broad, 4 square, and the altar that was before the house. And he brought me to the porch of the house, and measured each post of the porch, 5 cubits on this side, and 5 cubits on that side, and the breadth of the gate was 3 cubits on this side, and 3 cubits on that side. The length of the porch was 20 cubits, and the breadth 11 cubits. And he brought me by the steps whereby they went up to it, and there were pillars by the post, one on this side and another on that side. So, very detailed description of this new temple. When it's going to be built, I do not know. If you know, let me know. By some scripture, by some word of God. I know Jesus is going to build the temple of the Lord. In Zechariah, it's prophesied that twice. So let's see if anyone knows any more about this than I do. Which, yes, it's very well possible. But most of the time when I look things up, I find out the things I already know. So looking it up sometimes helps and sometimes doesn't. But if you know a scripture that says what temple this is, we know it's a new temple. I'd love to hear it. Well, I'm going to stop right there, and I will see you tomorrow. I know this was just a lot of reading, but I can't say much about it except it's very descriptive and very getting somebody ready to build this building. Okay, so I'm going to stop there and get back on chapter 41, or go to chapter 41, and of course it's more about the temple. So God bless you.